It guides the analysis, including the publication plan. So let's just take some examples. So let's take, I am a pediatrician. So let's take this example of a routine case that comes. A 2-year-old boy comes in with fever and severe pain in the right ear, has a history of recurrent infections. Mother expresses concern that he has been on this amoxicillin for the past few weeks. Worried about the consequences of the long-term antibiotic use, also concerned about the outcomes associated with recurrent ear infections. She wants to know if the prescribed amoxicillin is effective, can be substituted with another antibiotic because of its side effects such as frequent diarrhea. So it's just like a routine day, normal day clinical encounter that doctors would have. So if you are to design a study question out of it, you have two options. One are a set of questions which are called background questions. And these are like, what is otitis media? How common is otitis media? How does amoxicillin work? What are the general risk factors for otitis media? But these are what are called background questions. They can be answered through the review articles or textbooks, or you can do descriptive studies. What I would urge you to do is, as much as possible, to stay away from these background questions. The biggest mistake that most of us make is that we go after these kind of prevalence studies or some very simple descriptive studies, kind of saying there is no literature in Pakistan in doing these. But I think that is just the foundation which we put in wrong, because the amount of effort is the same, even if you are addressing these simple basic questions or some smarter questions. So what I would urge you is that whenever you are thinking of a research project, think about your study question and make sure you stay away from these background questions, and instead think of these foreground questions, which would be in this case as to what are the outcomes associated with recurrent ear infections, what are the possible effects of long-term use of antibiotics, what are the harms associated with current treatment. So these are more complex questions that involve interpretation, consideration of risk versus benefit and all, and these are best studied by primary studies, and our research should really focus on these kind of questions. So where do good research questions, so what are the process? What is the process of this? So the process is, this is the framework which you should just keep in mind, that you identify the research problem or idea, frame the questions in the PCOT format, and I'll go over what is that, and then focus the research questions and check using the finer criteria. So where do research ideas come from? They can come, most importantly, they come from your patient care, the kind of patients that you see. If there is a question that puzzles you, not sure what to do in that thing, so that is usually the best source for your research ideas. Other sources are medical literature. You attend a scientific meeting like this and some experts say that this is a research gap, so that gives you an idea. Teaching students can ask smart questions, colleagues or mentors. Sometimes funding organizations give a call, which are very thought out calls. So those can help, and then your own previous research. So let's take this example that you are an anesthesiologist involved in the care of elective knee replacement surgery. One of the most painful surgical procedures. There are many management options for pain, like IV opioids, epidural infusions, peripheral nerve blocks. You want to ensure that your patients are getting the optimum post-operative pain control. So what we will do is that we will make a study question out of this. So just think and ask yourself, how would you frame this in the study, in a study question that you could address, okay? So the first thing is that we are going to identify the research problem or idea. The research problem is optimum management of pain in perioperative settings for patients undergoing elective surgery. Now, what is the PCOT format? PCOT format is a patient population of, P stands for patient population of interest. What patient populations are you trying to address? I is the intervention or issue of interest. C is the comparison with another group. what are the alternatives for you. O is the outcome of interest, and T is the time frame. So let's see how we can put this in. So in this case, our patient population of interest would be, could be defined in terms of age, adults, geriatric, pediatric, what kind of patients, gender, clinically ill patients, those who are undergoing, let's say, this surgery. I is the intervention or issue of interest. So the issue here is epidural. What intervention can we do? So we could do epidural opioids alone, epidural or intrathecal analgesia, PCAs, regional techniques, or multimodal techniques like epidural analgesia in combination with acetaminophen and NSAIDs. C is the comparison group with another intervention. So it could be standard of care, placebo, NSAIDs, coxibs, and all. O is the outcome of interest. What is it that we are going for? So could be pain score, length of hospital stay, time to discharge, nausea. So it's important for us to commit to one or more of the items in all of these PCOT categories. And T is the time frame. When are we looking for? 30 to 60 minutes, 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours. When are we expecting a response? So putting it all together, so here in our PCOT, we are saying that we are looking for adult patients who are undergoing this knee replacement. Our interventions are multimodal treatment. Let's say these are epidural anesthesia in combination with acetaminophen and NSAIDs. Our control is single modal treatment. Outcome is the pain score, and time is over 24 hours following surgery. So if I put my question in this format, look at how nice the study question comes out. In adult patients undergoing elective TKR, does treatment with epidural analgesia in combination with acetaminophen and NSAIDs, multimodal analgesia, compared with epidural alone, lead to better pain scores and less side effects over 24 hours following surgery? So in this, you see your study population is well defined, your intervention is well defined, your outcome is your control group is well defined, your outcomes are clearly defined, and then the time period is well defined. So your whole study is kind of like beautifully right in front of you. Let's skip over this. The last step is then the finer criteria. And what is the finer criteria? So any question that you format in the PCOT style, the last thing you want to do is judge it in the finer criteria. So finer stands for feasible, interesting, novel, ethical, and relevant. So you need to be pretty brutal about this and really ask yourself, does your study question meet these criteria? So feasible, can you do this study? Is it easy for you to do this? You can do a pilot study to see feasibility. The inclusion criteria, can you meet that inclusion criteria? Can you get enough patients of that inclusion criteria? Do you need collaborators, or do you have yourself have all the skills and resources to enroll these? Do you have the money if it costs? And you should choose common outcomes and continuous versus binary outcomes. So the point is, you need to, something may be a very important question, but it may not be feasible for you to do. So in that case, you should not do that study. So it's important for you to really ask yourself, can I reliably and easily do this study or not? Is it feasible or not? Second thing you want to ask yourself, that is it interesting? Is it truly, does it interest you as a researcher? Does it interest your collaborators? Do the world care about this topic or not? It may be something that is very much of interest to you, but the field itself, the world itself doesn't care about it. In that case, you should not be doing this. On the other hand, something may be really important for the world, but you are just not interested in it. It doesn't strike your fancy. So you should stay away from it. Is it novel? So you need to decide if it is novel or not. You need to really be familiar with the literature. So usually it's not enough to just say, oh, while this has been done multiple times in the West, we haven't done it here, so I am doing it. There may be special circumstances when this is justified, but most of the time, you really need to ask if you are really adding something new to the world's knowledge or not. A mentor is also very useful for you in deciding this. Is it ethical? What you are proposing, are there any ethical elements or concerns in it? If so, you should either address it or stay away from it. And then, is it relevant? It's a something. Does the world care about this? Are you solving a big enough problem, or a significant problem, or an unsolved problem in this? What you are adding. So for that, you need to be either, if it is your own subject, then you should be familiar with it. Otherwise, you need to learn this. And again, guidance from experienced researchers and mentors is important. And a search on national and global burden of disease, if you are yourself not a subject expert on something, then it is an important thing to do. So overall, if you just remember this one slide, that the number one point is that the research question is the most important element of your research study. And to frame a research question, this is the format to use. You first identify the problem, frame the question in the PCOT format, draft a focused research question, and then check using finer criteria. If you can do this, then I am pretty confident that you will automatically develop a beautiful design for your study, a beautiful analysis plan, and your research will be accepted in a good impact journal. Thank you very much. These are some references which may be of use. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Asad Ali. It was indeed an excellent talk. I request our audience to please post your questions in a chat box so that at the end of the symposium, we can direct your questions towards the relevant speakers. Now, moving on to our next talk that will be delivered by Dr. Yasir Waheed. Dr. Yasir holds PhD degree in molecular virology, and right now he is an associate professor at Foundation University, Islamabad. His topic is Make It Publishable, from selection of a journal to getting it published. Over to you, Dr. Yasir.
Hello everyone, and a very good afternoon. My name is Dr. Yasir Waheed, and I am working as Associate Professor at Foundation University, Islamabad. The topic of my talk is Make It Publishable, from selection of a journal to getting it published. So I have divided my presentation into two parts. The first part of my talk is about the different parameters which can improve the quality of a paper. And the second part of my presentation is how to select a good journal to submit your paper. So first of all, I will discuss about the quality of figures and tables. As most of the journals require to submit tables and figures in a high quality format. Figures and tables are critical to a paper. Editors and readers look at these before reading the paper. Editors judge your paper on how well these are constructed. Figures and tables should stand alone and tells a complete story, and they must be unambiguous. So the figures and tables should be provided in a high quality format, and TIFF format is recommended by many journals. So journal states that the figure should be submitted in TIFF without layers and preferably using LCW compression, and it does not reduce the image quality. The JPG only if only your figures are saved in high quality format, and the image resolution should be at least 300 dpi. Unacceptable figure formats are image imported or copy pasted into Word or PowerPoint, and different other like JPG files which are saved in a low quality format. So this is the figure of my PhD student. And he made this figure in a TIFF format, and that this figure is in a high quality format. You can see that even this figure is covering the whole screen, but the pixels of this figure is not getting out. So try to submit your paper in a high quality format. Sometimes our trainees or students make figures in different softwares like SPSS software, and they just export this figure and copy paste into the Word format or into the manuscript. So these kind of files normally have a low quality resolution, and they are not publishable in international high quality journals. Sometimes journals tells you about the size of figure. Like if they states you to submit 8 centimeter figure, then the empty white space surrounding a figure should not be included when calculated image size. Image should therefore be cropped as close to the outside edge of figure as possible. So you can see the difference between two figures, both are 8 centimeter, but in this figure is cropped to the very close to the graph. So my PhD supervisor once told me that your figure should stand alone and tells the complete story. So in this figure, you can see that there is a lot of information available about this figure. So if you will find this paper just on a piece of paper, you will have an idea that what's going on in this figure. So first of all, there is the figure number, then there is a figure title, then there is complete detail about the figure. What is present on x-axis, what is present on y-axis, and what these number and bars which are present above the figure. So try to make a very good paper figure with good details. You can see that if you read a paper from a high impact factor journal, you see that there are a lot of details in the figure legend portion of the manuscript. So you should also try to write maximum information about the figure in your manuscript. If you have this kind of detailed data, this requires a table. And similarly, if you have a very simple data like this does not require a table. So this table shows effect of aeration on growth of a bacteria. So there is a one parameter if growth is present. So if aeration is present, there is growth. And in the absence of aeration, there is no growth. So this kind of simple data does not require a table, and it can be presented into simple 2 to 3 lines. So I'll always recommend my students to make a flow sheet diagram for their study. The flow sheet diagram simplifies the complex study, and when a reviewer will read your paper and they will see the flow sheet diagram, they will have a good idea at what you did in your study. So many students draw these kind of simple colored bar graph. So these kind of graph, when printed in black and white, they will display like this. So it is better to make a graded type of graphs or this kind of simple color graph, which will be difficult to read when published in simple black and white format. I think the most important problem which our students are facing or trainees are facing is the English language of the manuscript. So English language of your paper can be improved by using different online English language software which are available in Google. So I have pasted the name of 5 different software, but you can also find other software from Google. These are the sentence checker, one checker, Ginger, Grammarly, Whitesmoke. So if you will just paste your paper into a couple of these software, this will really improve the quality of your paper. Like I have pasted paragraph in a software named onlinecorrection.com, and it is suggesting me that there are like different typing or spelling mistakes in this paper. Some journals requires English language correction by professional language editors. There are a number of online English language companies. Many, like my papers are reviewed by a professional language editor from Scotland. She charges just $50 and take 2 to 5 days, and she really improved the quality of the paper. You can see this abstract written by one of my students, and when a journal send us email that you are not from an English speaking country, so we need an English language editor software. So we send this paper to a language editor. She worked on this paper, and you can see that this paper was written very good. But when a professional or native English speaker will edit this paper, she will really improve the quality of your paper. And journal also, some journal also required you to submit an English language software that the paper is corrected by a native language editor. Plagiarism detection. Also very important, like HEC has provided Turnitin software to almost all the universities of Pakistan, and the limit for Turnitin score is 19% for thesis and research paper. But I recommend to submit your thesis and paper with Turnitin score of close to 10%, because sometimes at later stage when your paper or thesis is published, the Turnitin score will sometimes increase, and it can sometimes create problem if your Turnitin score become more than 19%. Cover letter, it is important to write a very good cover letter, because this is your chance to speak directly to the editor. So explain main findings and motivation, highlight novelty and significance of result, try to impress editor, state final approval of all co-author, state if there is any conflict of interest. Many good quality journals also require you to submit a number of declarations, like the ethical approval, the consent for publication, funding, acknowledgement, etc. Manuscript reporting studies involving human participant, human data, or human tissue must include a statement on ethical approval and consent, include the name of ethical committee that approved the study and committee reference number, and study involving animals must include a statement on ethical approval. So this is a simple ethical approval letter. What journal required from you that this letter must have a name of committee who approved this study, and then there is letter number, and then date of study approval, and the letter should not be signed by any co-author of the submitted papers. Next is consent for publication. If your manuscript contains any individual personal data in any form, including any individual data, image or video, consent for publication must be obtained from person, or in case of children, their parents or legal guardian. All presentations of case reports must have consent for publication. Now, many of the good branch journal requires you to submit the name of at least 3 suggested reviewers. And they need you to submit the information about the name, designation, affiliation, email, and why you are nominating them as reviewer. They also require a couple of, if you want to add a couple of opposed reviewers, you can add the name of these reviewers. Competing interests, if you have a financial or non-financial competing interests, add in your paper all your interests. Funding source, all sources of funding for research report should be declared. The role of funding body in design of study and collection, analysis and interpretation of data, and in writing the manuscript should be declared. So this is the funding source I have copied from a published paper. Like this work was supported by HEC PhD fellowship, PubUS grant, and HEC grant number base. So these kind of information are required by the journal, and they publish this information on your manuscript. Choosing the right journal is the most important thing, because if you will not select the right journal, it will take months. The people will process in the journal, and then people will reject it, and then again reject it. So these kind of issues are faced by many of our research, many of our young researchers. I normally recommend you to use Jane software, Jane, Jane. If you Google Jane, you will find the website known as Journal Author Name Estimator. You will open. You will have this window. You have this box. Insert your title or abstract here. Then there are different parameters which are present at the base. So I have pasted the title of my paper in this box and click on Find Journal. So when I will click on Find Journal, it will display me a list of different journals, and also tells the details that if this is high quality open access, index in Medline or PMC. So there is another option, Show Article. Like if I will select this journal PLOS one and I click on Show Article, it will display me all the articles which are relevant to my study and which are published in the PLOS one journal. Like these are the 4 articles which are relevant to my study published in PLOS one. I will open this journal and will check the figures and table and the data which is present in this paper, so that I will have an idea that how much data is present in this paper, and if my research paper has more than this data or less than this data, so you will have an idea about the weightage of your paper. So which journal you will select, you can check by using this software. You can also paste your whole abstract and find the journal, and it will show you a list. Like this list contains more than 40 journals. You can select a journal from this list. And then there are different options which are present at the base of this software. Like there's an option known as show extra options. So if you click on show extra options of the Jane software, it will give you the option, like if you want to select the publication tag, like if you want to read all the articles which are original articles, or if you want meta-analysis, or if you want the open access journal. So you can optimize your search. Journal indexing, like if I'm working in Pakistan, our universities required us to publish paper in Impact Factor journal, and then there is indexing in PubMed and PubMed Central and Scopus. So how to check the indexing of your journal is very important. Like first thing is the impact factor, how journal on impact factor. So in any given year, the impact factor of a journal is average number of citation per paper published in that journal during the 2 preceding years. The impact factor of 2019 is equal to total citation in 2019 by 2017 and 18 paper. Our total papers published in 2017 and 18. So it's simple. If 100 papers are published and they got 100 citation, then the impact factor of journal is 1. You can also screen your journal in the list of ISI impact factor journal, which is published by the Thomas Rutter, if your journal is present in this list, and what is the impact factor of journal. Next is the PubMed indexing. Just type the name of your journal in PubMed and search. If your journal is indexed in PubMed, then the article which you publish in your journal will be displayed. Next, there is fake journals. These journals do not have impact factor. They are not indexed in any of the major databases, including PubMed or Scopus. They only charge you US dollar ranging from 100 to 1500 US dollars for per paper, and they normally do not reject any paper. So the last thing I want to discuss that, like if you submit a grant in HEC, there is an option at what is your cumulative or total impact factor. So how to calculate your impact factor? So if a researcher has 6 papers which are published in PubMed, so you just check the impact factor of each journal. Like this paper is published in Viral Immunology, Indian Journal of Virology, Archives of Virology, and Virology Journal. The impact factor of viral immunology is 1.44, and then these are the impact factor of other journal. When you will add all these impact factor, this will become the total or the cumulative impact factor of an individual. So this is all about my presentation, and thanks for your patient listening.
Thank you, Dr. Yasir, for such a beautiful talk and enlightening us regarding selection of journals as well as publication of our research studies. I'll repeat, audience can post their questions in a chat box that will be asked at the end of the symposium. Now, moving towards last talk of our symposium, I would like to request Dr. Adeel Ajwad Butt. He is a professor of medicine and associated with healthcare policy and research at Vale Corner Medical College, Qatar and USA. Dr. Adeel will be telling us about national and international funding opportunities for research in hepatology. Over to you, Dr. Adeel.
Morning and Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of Pakistan Society for the Study of Liver Diseases who have given me this opportunity to speak with you about a very timely topic. I know there's a lot of interest in clinical research in Pakistan in the field of hepatology, and I've been speaking to many hepatologists, junior faculty and mid-level faculty and fellows who have shown a lot of interest and are looking at funding opportunities. So we will spend some time on national and international funding sources and opportunities for research in liver disease over the next maybe 15 minutes or so. So what I'm going to do is talk about 4 things related to research funding. The first is the sources of funding, where you can apply to get research funding. And then we will look at the types of mechanisms that you have to employ or these sources employ to award research funding. We will look at some eligibility criteria, and then we will finish off with some strategy tips to improve your chances of getting research funding from one of these sources. So let's start off with as to who funds research. And for this talk today, we will be concentrating on clinical research specifically. So clinical research is funded by various agencies and organizations, depending on which country you live in, what nationality you have, and what kind of research you are trying to conduct. For example, in the United States, the largest funding agency for biomedical and clinical research is the National Institutes of Health. And NIH actually is the largest funder of clinical and biomedical research in the world. Other agencies include Food and Drug Administration, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, as well as local and state public health departments, in addition to many other smaller agencies. In Pakistan, the largest funder, to my knowledge, is the Higher Education Commission and the Pakistan Science Foundation. And we will spend some time discussing the opportunities available with these two agencies. Foundations also fund research, and in the context of liver diseases, the main ones are American Association for the Study of Liver Diseases, American Gastroenterological Association, and their counterparts in Pakistan, which include Pakistan Society for the Study of Liver Disease, Pakistan Society for Gastroenterology, Pakistan Society for Hepatology, and so forth. Now note that I'm concentrating only on gastro and hepatology related organizations. If you are conducting research in other clinical areas or other subspecialties, they would have their own organizations and foundations who might be funding such kind of research. There are global philanthropies which fund research, and these include organizations like the Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, and so forth. If you have a patient who is very happy with the service you have provided or very happy with the hospital care or general health care, a grateful patient may provide a large endowment, or his or her family may provide a large endowment for research. And that can be an excellent source of research funds for particularly junior and early investigators. Of course, pharmaceutical industry provides research funding, and we will talk briefly about that as well. In addition to industry, biotech companies and other companies, commercial companies which have products to test or sell, may fund research for two purposes. One is to actually enhance science and create new knowledge, but also that may be related to the products that they are producing, marketing, or selling, so to support some of that activity. Finally, your local institutions, academic institutions like your university, your hospital, or the healthcare organization that you work for might have pilot funds or even larger funds for that matter, which will fund research. When these organizations do provide funding, what are the types of mechanisms that they employ? So you can apply as an investigator-initiated project. In other words, your idea, which is not specific to any funding opportunity that the organization or the funder has listed. So hence it's called investigator-initiated. It's your idea. You want to create knowledge or generate new knowledge in that area or that field, and you create a grant or you write a grant, and then you apply to the general organization. You could also respond to specific requests for proposals or funding opportunity announcements. So these are more targeted funding mechanisms. In other words, the agency may have identified a specific need or a specific area which is understudied or a special area of interest for whatever reason, and they will put out an announcement that they would request applications specific to that area or that field. You can also have sponsor-driven research, and this is often supported by industry, pharmaceutical companies, biotechs, and so on and so forth. And a lot of times the funding agency or the organization will have some angle that they want to cover. You can also have cooperative agreements. So the difference between cooperative agreement and sponsor-driven and other research is that in cooperative agreements, you have two or more two or more either investigators or interested parties coming together and conducting the research that is being proposed. And a couple of cooperative agreements that I've instituted or executed in the last decade or so have been with my institution partnering with the large pharmaceutical industry, but doing investigator-initiated research. In such a case, the sponsor or the funding organization does have some say, and they are part of your research team as well, but they do not hinder or impede good science. Who can apply for these kinds of grants or funding? Generally, funding is awarded to higher education institutions and academic medical centers. They are also awarded to healthcare facilities or organizations, professional associations. In some cases, patient advocacy and support groups can apply for funding, as well as nonprofit organizations and charitable organizations. Funding is generally not awarded or provided to individuals or non-registered entities. There are some exceptions to that, but generally, when there is a grant involved, it goes to the institution, even though you may be the PI, the principal investigator or the lead investigator, but the funding actually has to go to your institution in vast majority of cases. What types of activities are funded by these organizations and agencies? Well, that is highly variable based on who is funding it, but generally falls into a few categories. Of course, clinical research is what we are most interested in today. And in the realm of clinical research, they can fund clinical trials, epidemiologic and outcome studies, comparative effectiveness studies, post-marketing surveillance studies, and studies looking at mechanisms of disease or intervention. Then, of course, you have basic science research, which looks at mostly mechanisms of disease, molecular diagnostics, pharmacologic studies, etc. Some organizations also fund educational activities, and these could include healthcare, workforce education, patient education, community education. They can also fund certain conferences and symposia as long as they follow certain criteria that they've put forth. Outreach activities can also be supported by some organizations, and these include community outreach via education or support of either clinical care or social services. So let's move on to what we have available in Pakistan. And when I search and when I look around, HEC or Higher Education Commission is probably the most mature and the largest organization funding research in Pakistan. And I'm talking about agencies indigenous to Pakistan, not outside or international donor agencies or funding agencies which are funding research in Pakistan. All this information is available on their website, and I've taken all that directly from the website. So the type of competitive research grants that HEC awards include Grand Challenge Fund, Local Challenge Fund, and innovative and collaborative research grants. So these are three out of many mechanisms or types of research grants that award that I thought would be more pertinent to the audience here today. So the first one of these is HEC Grand Challenge Fund, or GCF. And this is this kind of funding mechanism supports large multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional research projects. And HEC expects that successful projects under this mechanism would be collaborative in scope with research teams who work cooperatively to accelerate research progress for societal impact. They also expect the projects to use a systems-type approach in developing the research agenda, where separate projects come together to achieve a broad-based thematic research advance. And they want the projects to include relevant cutting-edge research activities and postgraduate student training. So student training often is a key theme of grants that are given out by HEC in Pakistan, which is an excellent thing. So a few key features of this type of mechanism or Grand Challenge Fund is that they expect to award about 25 grants per year, with the maximum project duration for each grant or project to be about 3 years or so. And individual grant value to be anywhere between 15 million rupees to 225 million rupees. So you can see that these can be very large grants if the scope is interesting and the topic is of great interest to the population of Pakistan. The next type is the Local Challenge Fund, and this is anticipated to support activities that address locally relevant socioeconomic issues. They can also address any topics which are related to the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and they provide funds to selected institutions based upon a competitive peer-reviewed application that you submit. And key objectives of LCF or local challenge funds are to support cross-disciplinary research that addresses any of the 17 SDGs at the district level. They also intend to support strengthening of local university research capacity and to contribute to the research mission of the host institution in solving local issues. So as opposed to the grant challenge, which is more of a national scale, this looks at more local issues and problems at a local level. The third type is the Innovative and Collaborative Research Grant, which supports research partnerships between Pakistan and British universities. And key features of this are that there are about 6 grants that they expect to award each year, with a maximum project duration of 3 years or so, an individual grant value of up to 50 million rupees. The key areas, again, there were many key areas that HEC was interested in, but ones relevant to today's audience are medical and allied health sciences, artificial intelligence, big data, and cloud computing, which you can use for healthcare-related research and social sciences research. The other big organization in Pakistan that funds such kind of research is the Pakistan Science Foundation. And again, they have multiple priority areas in several fields of research that are listed that they would fund. And again, for today's audience, the relevant ones include pharmacology, in which priority research areas include pharmacogenetics and drug development, medical biotechnology field, in which molecular technology for new diagnostics for infectious diseases, recombinant technologies, and production of human and animal vaccines are supported. They also fund research on emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, and of particular relevance to this society, PSSLD members, is research in hepatitis C. And this is an example of one of their call for proposals. They fund projects up to 1 year or so, the maximum funding of 20 million rupees if you're going in as a consortium, and if you're going in as an individual researcher, up to 8 million rupees, which translates to about $50,000 for individuals and $125,000 or so for a consortium. So substantial amount of funding for a country like Pakistan. Now, the caveat for both HEC and PSF-related funding is that currently the due date for 2020 has already passed, but the year is also coming to an end. So look out for next year's announcements when their call for applications open up, so that you can see if the research that you want to do falls into the categories that they're interested in, and you can put in an application for that. Moving on to some international agencies that would fund research in Pakistan. So generally the pharmaceutical companies who have some stake, you can put in competitive applications for some of these. And Gilead Sciences is, I think, one of the major ones who are funding research in the field of hepatology. In Pakistan and globally, actually, they fund a fair amount of research, which is investigator-initiated research in HIV and AIDS, hematology, oncology, inflammatory respiratory diseases, and of particular interest to us is liver diseases. I've had Gilead Sciences funding for several years, which supported some of my investigator-initiated research looking at Hep C. So they consider a number of factors when they're reviewing grants, but it is most important for applicants to demonstrate a strong commitment to and capacity for delivering the specific services that that the grant would support that you're asking for. They accept grant applications throughout the year, but from time to time they put out RFPs or requests for proposals, which have specific deadlines. So you need to keep an eye out for that by looking at the website. And I've listed the website at the bottom of this slide. They also have public health awards in viral hepatitis, which is of specific interest to our membership of PSSLD. So the criteria include clear alignment with an area of health priority and scientific importance to low and middle income countries. So this may be of particular importance to researchers in Pakistan. And this should fall into a larger theme of career objectives of the applicant. So they should support long-term career objectives of the lead investigator as well. And they want specific, measurable, and realistic objectives and steps required to meet research and career development goals through this mechanism. The award provides financial support to the institution of a junior faculty or postdoc student for a two-year period. And the amount of funding is relatively generous, I think $50,000 or more. And who can apply for this public health award funding in viral hepatitis? This is intended for junior faculty or postdocs who have a MBBS, a PhD, or equivalent degree at the time of award. And they must be employed at an academic or research institution in eligible countries in low and middle income countries, basically, which Pakistan certainly qualifies for. So in the last few minutes, let's move on to discussing development of a competitive research project. And a few steps for a competitive application, first of all, include asking a clinically relevant question. Then you do a thorough literature search to see if someone has already answered that question or what are the true gaps in that area or field. You develop your specific aims and hypotheses. You develop study designs and tools. In other words, the methods that you're going to use to collect data. And then statistical analyses and hypothesis testing, which includes sample size calculation and power that you'll have to answer that question. And keep in mind that you have to fulfill all the regulatory and reporting requirements for doing research. A successful application has certain characteristics or attributes which are relatively well known to researchers. These include that your hypothesis or the question that you're asking should be novel. It should be significant. In other words, it should matter and change practice in some way, shape, or form, or increase the general knowledge in the field of study. It should be relevant both to your patient population as well as to the general society and its needs. A good proposal is one that is focused and not all over the place. You should have plausible hypotheses and not be over ambitious in a single grant. And they should be very achievable. In other words, you have to demonstrate that whatever question you're posing or putting through the research grant is actually answerable through the grant mechanism and the funding that you will receive, and that you have the capacity and the skill set to answer that question. So these are the steps I listed submitting a grant application. You clearly define the question, know your field in depth, determine the resources and logistics that are needed to successfully execute the project. You lay out your complete strategy, get all the approvals that are needed, and these approvals would include IRB approval, your scientific approval from your local institution, your chairman's approval, dean or vice chancellor approval, and so on and so forth. And only then can you start your project. Now, just one more time to emphasize what the pillars of a successful grant application are. And these are the themes that reviewers look at, that your grant and your application or the questions that you're asking and trying to answer should be exciting and innovative. Generally, questions that have been answered by 50 other groups or teams or researchers are not given a priority in funding decisions. You should have a very well-defined research plan. You should have tools and methods to successfully execute that project that you're proposing. Your logistics should be clear. In other words, who will do what, when, where, and how should be very clearly laid out. And you should have the team which has expertise in doing that. Preliminary data is compelling or at least supportive of the goals that you put forward. So if your preliminary data is absent or does not support your hypotheses, then your chance of success is very, very low. In highly competitive grants, investigators must have a track record of success, whether it's through publications or previous grant funding. But that is a strong criteria which gets a lot of weight from the reviewers. And finally, the results should have impact on society, on your patients, on your practice, and so forth. And a few fatal flaws to avoid are, don't be too ambitious. So in a single grant, don't put like 15 different hypotheses, be focused. Another fatal flaw is that significance or innovation is lacking. So if someone is asking a question that has been asked many, many times before and answered by other people, or it doesn't matter if you answer it successfully, it won't change the practice in any way. The project lacks feasibility or plausibility, or if you choose the wrong methods to answer the question. If you have multiple aims, your second, third, and subsequent aims are dependent on the success of your previous aim. This is a big flaw that is often listed in NIH grants that you have sub-dependent aims. The problem occurs is when if your first aim fails, then you won't be able to successfully complete the second and third aim, and the whole grant falls apart. If you lack expertise either in yourself or your team, then that is looked upon quite unfavorably. If you give insufficient detail or if the project is poorly written, then also the grant will not be funded very well. So I will stop here, and I will be happy to answer any questions that may come up. And once again, I would like to thank organizers of PSSLD for giving me this opportunity to present today.
Thank you, Dr. Adeel, for such a wonderful talk regarding this important aspect of clinical research. Now I would like to request my expert chairs for their valuable comments and if they have any questions.
Thank you very much. And it's very heartening to be here in the PSSLD seminar once again. And I must appreciate the topic which we have chosen for this session, and for the young researchers and young fellows to come up with their ideas and guidance. And I think all the speakers contributed very well in order to guide the juniors to how to indulge in a meaningful research, and which not only help the public and help a fraternity for their improvisation, but also for their own progress as well. I personally like to thank Dr. Adeel Ajwad Butt for one reason that is important, is that how to fund the research which is in our part of the world. It's really a problem. One thing which I must point out here, that as far as HEC granting is concerned, right, of course, considering the magnitude and the population of researchers, perhaps that need to be enhanced, and the PSSLD is doing in this direction as well. I appreciated the work of all these three which they put up in enlightening the audience for their talks. Thank you very much.
Well, it was a very nice session, and especially focusing over the importance of research in our field. And as we all know, that research is not only important for the students, but also for the postgraduate trainees and the doctors, the emerging consultants, and even for the seniors as well. So I must thank the three of our speakers who did their job greatly, and they helped us in guiding regarding publishing our projects, and to find grants and funds for our research projects. Well, thank you, everyone.
It's a pleasure to be here. My question to all the speakers, and being in academics in this country for a long time, is that a lot of time most of the research begins by saying, "Sir, data ikatha ho gaya, uska main kya karu?" So basically, I feel that a lot of times we start in the reverse. So, but it is a practical problem because our facilities are not research oriented. So my question to you is there a way of starting when you have a huge load of clinical data that you have accumulated over the years, and then asking a research question at that point and saying, well, let me dig into the data, or there's some striking data out there, can we base our research on that? Maybe the first speaker, it was, I think, Asad, can comment on that, on how to formulate a research question from there and go from there.
Thank you. I think, Bilkul, you are absolutely right that this is a problem that, or this is a scenario, I would say, which many of us begin with. And it's a catch-22. I would just urge that, I think it's just important to keep reminding ourselves to do hypothesis-driven research. And so that's kind of like the key phrase. A big data set, if we have, that should help us in doing that, but that should not be the start. The start should be the hypothesis. So the hypothesis testing will only be feasible if you have a rich data set. So important to first get a question, then develop the methodology, see it is feasible or not, rather than seeing this is the data set, how can I use it now? That usually leads to improper questions, which are just, one is always struggling, how do I get this published? So I think the buzzword that I tell the students, I'm sure you also do, is that go for a hypothesis driven research. What is your hypothesis? What is the question that you are trying to answer? And you should define those questions in a way which leverages the big data set that you have. How can you answer that question that another person can't, who doesn't have access to this data set? So I think it's important to just keep reminding ourselves it's a challenging situation, because one is always tempted to go with the available data, but important to translate your questions into a hypothesis and then answer it using the database.
And I think we should continuously be asking some research questions as we go around, even do day-to-day clinical. Like you based your presentation on a clinical question and then sort of said, what is unusual the unusual route I can go. But that was excellent. I think the online resources and English language, I think that's a big challenge. And our second speaker actually mentioned that those softwares are very helpful. Instead of using Professor Arif as a software to correct your English, I would rather have these guys use those online resources, because I'll tell you, the abstract in this country has come to you like 1 hour before the deadline closes, and then you're struggling with trying to fix the English, forget about the part of it. So my message to my dear fellows is, please submit the abstract at least a day before the deadline, because at that time the sites crash and we can't get them in. Abstracts are a good way to start. We have published like 30 plus abstracts in ACG, for example. But this online, how user-friendly are those? Can I ask the second speaker that? How user-friendly are those softwares to use? Anybody can use them? Or
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. These softwares are very user-friendly. So I have shown a software in which you can just paste your text and click on submit button. So the software will data or your text, and it will point out different kind of mistakes. Like some software will only tell about like grammar mistakes, others are like spelling and punctuation. So if you will pass your research paper from a couple of these software, the quality of paper will really improve. So these are very, very user friendly and very easy to use. Like in my slide, one of my slides, I have shown that how to use them. Just paste your text and click on submit button, and it will show you results in 2 seconds.
Oh, that's nice. Asad, class of 88 had a fund created for CME, and I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with it. Capacity building workshops, since I was in the initial thought process of that, capacity building workshops and research would be a very, very good topic where you can actually get people other than online, and once the physical meetings start, people could be there for a day or two at AKU or around there and just get trained, because I think it's a big challenge. There's not enough avenues for formal training in research in this country.
Bilkul, I think you're absolutely right. And while that fund, the focus there is more on the clinical kind of translation, but I think research, manuscript writing workshop, grant writing workshops are very important. We just got a D43 grant for capacity building, and we'll be doing some workshops on this. So I think you're absolutely right. Whenever we have conducted those workshops, there has been superb response from people. So there is a thirst and there is a need for those kind of workshops, and it's our job, whoever can do it, to do them regularly.
By the way, funding of that grant is open to any capacity building of any physician in Pakistan, because I did write that outline, so I know that it's open to everybody. Adeel, welcome. Glad you could join. We have already heard you. By the way, Adeel and I, we go back a long way, and I don't want to count the number of years, but it is quite a long way. That's an excellent presentation that you gave us. The Pakistan Science Foundation grant looks very appealing and a significant amount of money. Do you know of any successful applicants to these grants, like local grants I'm talking about, or have you been lucky enough to get one of these grants?
Sir, there is distortion. Actually, I'm sorry, we are unable to hear your voice. One question for Dr. Yasir is, you have talked about plagiarism and there is specific Turnitin score related to that. So there are some paraphrasing software available online. So is there any importance of those software as well, or are they reliable?
Yes, there are different paraphrasing software are available, but like if you screen your text or your paper from one of these software, like Turnitin is highly recommended in Pakistan, and it will show that you have like high similarity index. So it is better to do it yourself. Like I always recommend my students and researchers that you have to reduce the Turnitin score of your research paper or your thesis. So I mostly recommend to the researchers to do by themselves.
Okay, thank you so very much, sir. And okay, sir.
HEC has the whole software for excluding the plagiarism, and it's usually says that every paper should go through it, and around they allow up to 20% as far as the provision of material taking from somewhere else, but apart from that they usually reject either synopsis or abstract or whatever it is. So that's the one thing which is available. With the institutional level, the institution, they are bound to have it, as simple as that. So that's the one is the official. Once you go through the HEC this software, all right, then you're I think more than likely to get it approved.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to thank all the speakers and the honorable faculty members present here as a chair. Now moving towards the quiz. So question number 1 will be, case control study is an example of which study design? So
this is what Fareed is trying to help everyone by showing the correct answer in the red font. So he has a good friendship with Yasir, and he showed the answer in Yasir, and he has some deal. So Yasir quickly picked up the answer, and then so this red.
Yes, very good. हम करने लगते, but we on camera.
So guys, did you have 2 deals among each other? Huh? You don't?
ये तो साजिश हो गई है.
Okay, भाई एग्जाम का पर्चा तो लीक हो गया है, so be ready.
So for the next question, I will just read the question in front of you, and at the end I'll show the answers.
Okay.
Dr. Yasir has already won the first prize. So the next question is, what are the responsibilities of corresponding author? Option number 1 is communication with journal, peer review and publication process. B is get all authors detail and ensure ethical practices are followed. C is usually a senior researcher who leads the research and ensure well-written manuscript before submission. Option number 4 is all of the above.
Answer in chat box.
All of the above sounded very tempting.
Okay, so the common sense win or the knowledge wins, whatever. Jalpa Devi wins this quiz. Jalpa, good job.
Thank you so very much. And now I will like to announce there will be a namaz and lunch break from now onward till 2:30 p.m. and lunch will be served at faculty lounge at 2 p.m. Thank you so very much for your patience and attendance.
The afternoon is very exciting. You want to talk about that? Afternoon is a very interactive 3 hours. So PGs should definitely show up, and I think teachers out here should get their PGs to sit down and listen to that. It's really exciting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arif. So the afternoon exactly is going to be based upon clinical vinyas sessions. So in the daily life, the common case scenarios which are like slightly difficult you face in your clinical practices, they will be discussed by experts. So don't forget to come back 2:30. Thank you very much.